writing equations of lines from graphs. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin with, it is important to know what format I'm going to use to write my equation. We are going to use the slope y-intercept form because it lets me identify a slope from a graph and a y-intercept from a graph and write my equation. So the formula that I'm going to use is y equals mx plus b. Now I'm going to put a box around the two things that are going to be replaced in my equation when I encounter an actual graph. So I'm going to replace my slope, or my m, with how far I rise over my run. It's always going to be written as a fraction unless I can simplify it. And b, which is my y-intercept, or it's that place on my y-axis. So this would be a y-intercept, or this down here might be a y-intercept. Let's go ahead and look at a graph. As I'm looking at this line, okay, I can see that my line crosses my y-axis right here. And I can see that I have a second point right here, which is going to allow me to calculate a slope. So remember, I'm filling out the form y equals mx plus b. Now when I start writing equations, I usually write y equals something x. I leave a blank spot for everywhere I'm going to replace, plus my y-intercept. And I identify the things that I need to. So remember, my slope is a fraction. It's the rise over the run. Go to a point on your graph. It does not matter which, although I always like to read my graph from left to right, so I always start with the one on my y-axis. So starting here, I'm going to move to my next point, which is down here at 3, 3. So I'm going to find my rise over my run. So if I want to find my rise, instead of going up to get to the second point, I need to move down 2 spaces. So down 2 means it's a direction of -2. And my run is side to side. So how far over how many spaces do I count over? 1, 2, 3. Now, how does that go into my equation? Remember, slope is a fraction and it goes in front of x. So I'm going to put a fraction in front of x. I'm going to put my rise on top. Okay, I calculated my rise is -2. So -2 is going to go on top of my fraction. And 3 was my run. So 3 is going to go on the bottom of my fraction. And I've answered that portion. B, remember, B is my y-intercept. That's where it crosses on the y-axis. So here's my y-axis. Where does that blue line cross? It crosses right here where I have it circled. It crosses at the number 5. So in that second blank spot, I'm going to put the number 5. And this would be my final answer. And I would be done. All right. So to recap, I found my slope, and then I found my y-intercept, and I put them in these 2 blank spots that I had. Let's go ahead and look at a second example. If I'm looking at this equation, this graph, I'm going to go ahead and write y equals something. I'm going to leave a blank spot for my m. Remember, that's the m spot, plus my b spot. Let's go ahead and find our slope. Remember, slope is rise over run. So I'm going to find one dot on my graph, and I always go left to right. So the first one I encounter as I'm going along my graph is this one right here. So this is my first point, and this is my second point, and we're going to calculate the slope. So up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a positive 6 change. And my run, counting over, 1, 2. So my run is positive 2. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put in my blank spot for my slope, or my m, which is always next to x. I'm going to put the rise on top, which is positive 6, and my run on bottom, which is positive 2. Plus my y-intercept. That second blank spot is my y-intercept. So as I look at my graph, here's my y-axis. My y-intercept is right here. How high is that on my graph? It is at 0. Now the very last step is actually to simplify. I can simplify this equation because 2 over 6 can be simplified to 3 over 1, or just 3x. And if I have something, if I'm adding 0 to something, that's like I'm not adding anything, and so I can leave it off or empty. Now, it would not mark it wrong if you, on Alex, if you wrote either answer, but this is the most simplified answer. Let's go ahead and look at just a couple more. So write an equation of this line. So y equals, leave a blank spot for your x, for your slope next to x, plus your y-intercept. So let's go ahead and find my slope. Remember, slope is the rise over the run. Okay, and I'm going to go along my line until I find my dot, which is right here. So this is my first point, and I'm going to make it to my second point. Here's first point, here's second point. So finding our rise, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I don't need to go up any higher because I'm level with this point. And I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I go to write my fraction, my rise over my run, so 5 over 5, plus my y-intercept, which is at positive 2. Now I'm going to simplify if I can. Y equals 5 over 5 simplifies to 1, x plus 2. Now some of you may recognize that I don't actually have to write the 1. I can just write x plus 2. All right, next example. So again, I'm going to write the blank format, y equals blank x plus blank. Remember, here's where my slope goes. And here's where my y-intercept goes. So I'm first going to find my slope. As I'm coming along my line, this is my point 1. This is my point 2. Let's go ahead and find the rise over the run. So remember, your slope is a fraction where the rise is on top, the run is on bottom. So I'm going to count down first to get to my next point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So down 6, so the direction is negative 6, over 1, 2. So positive 2. I'm going to go ahead and write my slope as a fraction, where the directions going to go down goes on top, and the directions to go the right to go on bottom. What is my y-intercept? Where does my line cross my y-axis? It crosses right here at -1. Remember to simplify your answer. -2/6 simplifies to -3. And instead of a plus a -1, I can simplify that just to -1. And this would be my final answer. We're going to go over one more example. Now, what do I do when my graph does not give me the dots? Well, I'm going to have to make them myself. And I'm looking for whenever my line crosses at a whole number. So for example, if it were to cross at -1, 1. So a whole number. So I'm going to come along my line, start at the front, and when I see where it crosses at a whole number, I'm going to put a dot. So right here at 0, 4, it crosses. I'm going to continue on. It doesn't cross at a whole number here, still not crossing at any whole numbers, and I stop here because it's crossing at whole number, so 2, 1. Once I have 2 points, I'm going to set up my equation. Y equals my slope, x plus my y-intercept. Let's go ahead and find our fraction, our rise over our run. So I'm going to start at the first point that I came to, and in order to get to the next point, I'd have to go down 1, 2, 3. So that would be -3, and 1, 2 as my run. So as I go to write my fraction, I put the -3 on top because the rise is over the run. Now, what is my y-intercept? What goes in that last blank spot? Where does my line cross this y-axis? It crosses right here at +4. So I asked myself, can I simplify it at all? Well, the slope of -3/2 cannot be simplified. And I don't have a plus and negative, so this would be my final answer.